Hey, it's Lee Balcom, back again. So I had several people who said, hey, what happened? You were putting out videos and now it's been like a month since the last video went out. And so let me tell you what happened. Technical difficulties. My family and I were out of town for a bit. And so before I left, I took a lot of video, a lot of footage, and I was really proud because while I was away, I figured I would do some editing, put up the videos, and we would have a continual flow of these videos for you because you're here for a reason, and I wanted to make sure you get the information. Now, you may not have noticed I was gone for a month if you aren't subscribed, and if you aren't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button so you get notification when the new videos do come out, even if there is a lag in that. So what happened? Well, I had every good intention of going and editing those videos and putting them up, and we're all good. Except for the videos that I had made were all corrupt. The audio, the video was great. Well, I mean, except for me being in the video. It was a great video. It was clear and everything else. It just kept having my face be there, but you'll have to put up with that, except for the audio. The audio was not so good. And so I had to scrap it all, which made me kept thinking about the time, right? Because you're on a schedule, whether you know it or not. You're doing this work. You're here because you're working on your marriage, and you need the information in time, which raises the question that I've had several people ask me, like, when should I start saving my marriage? When should I do that? So there's a very, very simple answer to that. Now. Now is the time. There's a Asian proverb that says that the best time to have planted a tree that you need was 30 years ago, right? 20, 30 years ago. So it's mature when you need it. Second best time, now. Because the longer you put this off, the harder it is to get things going. And let me kind of tell you kind of the research that I did early on. And that is the fact that there is an inverse ratio of how long a crisis goes on and how likely you are to turn it around. So if you think of a scale up the side of how likely you are to save your marriage, from 100% to 0, and that's one axis. The other axis is time. So the time goes from the beginning of a crisis till however long it takes you to get started. And what you discover is there is this diagonal down of what happens, right? From you have a really good chance till that chance decreases as time goes on, which kind of makes sense. I mean, isn't that true with any crisis? The longer a crisis goes on, the less likelihood it is that things are going to resolve. I mean, think about if you had some diagnosis. The longer you put off getting treatment for that, the less likely it is that things are going to go well because complications keep adding on. They multiply. Whether it's a marital crisis or a health crisis, right? If you keep pushing that off, the worse it gets. And eventually, you end up with a much lower likelihood. And so I want you to kind of think about the fact that where you are right now is the beginning point. So you can be upset with the fact that maybe you didn't address things long ago. There's one thing that I've learned in my life, and that is that regret serves us very poorly. We can think back and make wishes about what we wish had happened and wish of our reaction being different, but we can't go back and recapture that. We can decide that going forward is different. So we can't change the past, but we can sure change the trajectory of the future. And that's part of where we're left with this conundrum. When do you start? Now. How do you start? Right? That's kind of the question that we've been talking about in past videos. But what concerns me many times is when I first talk with people, they push off. I had a conversation with somebody who called me up and said, I'm thinking about doing some coaching with you. What do you think? And we talked about it. And the person said, I think I'm going to let this hang for a little bit. And maybe I'll come back to you if things don't turn around. So I had one question to that person. what's going to turn it around? What are you doing now that will turn it around? Because turning it around means something has to shift. And if nothing is shifting in what you're doing, nothing will shift. If nothing changes in what you're doing, nothing will change. A colleague of mine, Brenda Burchard, talks about the fact that there are really two ways that changes happen. Change either comes upon us from the outside or change comes from within us, from the inside. We decide to make that shift. And my observation is many times when the change is external, it's not in our favor. The way we make a shift that's in our favor is deciding from inside what we're going to bring out, what we're going to bring out differently. So whether that is changing the way that you interact with your spouse, changing the way that you interact with the world, changing the foundational pieces of your relationship in some way to get to that place I talk about as being a we, there has to be something that shifts. No shift, no change. And we get to choose how our side, right, is going to make a change. Now, does that guarantee that something is going to change for your relationship? No. Doing nothing guarantees that nothing's going to change, though, right? And so many times people are like, if you can guarantee me that things are going to work out, I'm going to get started. And I usually suggest the reverse guarantee. I can guarantee what happens if you do not start taking action. I can guarantee you what happens if you do not make that shift. I can't guarantee what's going to happen if you do work on this, right? But I can guarantee what happens if you don't, because you're already headed on a trajectory, right? And so that trajectory is already going in a direction. And unless you change the trajectory of you and your relationship and how you're relating, we know where it lands. So whenever we're thinking about that, what's better, to wait it out or to get started? My vote is get started. Now, that's the thing that catches many people is they then have to admit they don't know what to do. Sometimes I find myself in this place where I keep putting things off. I don't want to get involved in something, and I can say, well, I'll get to it down the road. I'll figure this out down the road. Now, I've got some thermostats that I meant to install last year that are Wi-Fi for our new house, and Wi-Fi, and would also have different scheduling capacities. And I bought them, going, okay, I'll take care of that. What I realized is I don't have the confidence to put those in. And so they have sat in a box till now. And so what changed? I realized if I don't have the confidence to do it, because I don't have the knowledge base, I better go find someone who does. So we're having someone come in and make sure that they function with our system, because the worst thing that happens, in the midst of temperatures that we have now, right now it's still pretty hot outside, is for me to mess up the thermostat. And that's what held me back, right? Because I was afraid that if I didn't know what to do, trying to do something to improve things may lead us to a worse place. So I decided that I would do something, and that was to find somebody who knew what they were doing. They could help me get that done. Now, if that's what's holding you back, if you're not sure what to do, what you could do to make a change, let's talk. Let's figure that out. If you need a program to follow, check out my program at SaveTheMarriage.com. It's the Save the Marriage system. It's been used by tens of thousands of people around the world. We're closing in on 100,000 couples, people who have used this to apply it to their program to help the couples all over the world to make a difference. And it'll make a difference for you too. But you have to start the process. You have to take that first step. So if you're wondering, is now the time? Yes, now is the time. If you're wondering how to do that, please come visit me at SaveTheMarriage.com. Let's get this started before the crisis begins to spiral downward to get you to a better place, to the place that you want, to the marriage that you want. Hope to see you there. Take care.